Bryce Young, albeit in a loss, went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and didn't blink, not once. 21 for 35 in this game, 261 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He had 4 big-time throws versus single coverage and a 90.6 passing grade against single coverage. This looked like a new Bryce Young, man. So, look, Bryce, not a good rookie season, all right? Admittedly, it was not a good rookie season for the number 1 overall pick last year. 2 games into this year, it's a new coaching staff, a new coach, and Bryce gets benched. He does not look capable sort of mentally the way that he needs to approach the position and play the game at a very high level. And so he gets benched for a couple of games. Andy Dalton comes in. Andy Dalton ends up hurting his thumb, so they end up going back to Bryce Young, and it sort of allowed him to now grow a little bit more into what we have seen this past week, which, Seth, in my opinion, was his best game as a pro. I thought this was his best game. This was the closest to Alabama Bryce Young that we have seen yet from him in the NFL. So, my question to you, stick or twist with Bryce Young when it comes to next year? Because Carolina Panthers probably going to be picking in the top 5 again. Might have an opportunity to get a quarterback. You sticking or twisting? What are you doing?
Still don't know what a stick is.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know either. Are you handing him a stick, or are you guys doing the twist? I don't know. Like, which one are you doing?
I'm handing Bryce the stick.
Isn't speaking of game show, isn't like Survivor, don't you get like an immunity stick? Like, don't you get like that's okay, so are you handing him the immunity stick, or are you getting sucked up in a twister and you getting thrown all the way out of there? Which one?
I'm handing Bryce the immunity stick.
Okay.
He is safe for another week.
Okay. Voted
on NFL Survivor.
No, that would actually be a good. There's something there. We could flesh out this idea. Okay, all right.
I think we have to do NFL Survivor, and we have to go back to NFL QB therapy. That's our next one. But all right, Bryce Young, I agree. Best game as a pro. Just one of the better games of this weekend, maybe the best game of this weekend for a quarterback. And I agree, look like the Bryce Young from Alabama. There was one play in particular that I really liked, and it showed off 2 separate things, I think, which was the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know why I said it like that. Kansas City came out, they ran cover 0, they blitzed everyone. He had like a 12-yard out route to David Moore, I believe. It was either David Moore or Adam Thielen. I think it was Moore. And so man-to-man, no safety, full blitz. And he's able to kind of just like buy himself time in the pocket by, he can't step up in the pocket because of the blitz. So he buys himself time just by like kind of backpedaling in the pocket another 3-4 yards. So he's making the throw longer. He's under pressure, but he's able to get that ball off accurately on time and in stride to his receiver, who got like an ounce of separation, but that was enough. And then the ounce of separation was really a lot of what his great throws were. He was willing to put the ball into like on time into receivers that he had to trust were going to get that separation. Because if they were not separating, like David Moore had, it feels like once a year or once every 3 years we get a David Moore 75-yard game. Adam Thielen, obviously an old man receiver, can still play a bit, but lacks some separation and speed. So there were tight windows that he had to throw to right now. Because if he waits a beat longer, those are not, they're not separating anymore. Mm-hmm. He did that. The whole game he did that. So and there were some really nice throws over the shoulder on the sideline. I thought this was really good. I think with Bryce, I said this to you before, like I want to give him a year where he has a full offseason with the same coaching staff, the same offense. Now, I assume that'll happen in Carolina, but with David Tepper and like his temperament, like I don't know for sure. I think every week we have to reevaluate how David Tepper is going to handle his head coach next year. But I would love to see another year in the same system, because with Bryce Young, so much of this has to happen before the snap. He showed a lot of playmaking ability at Alabama, after the snap, getting away from trouble. There's a chance that comes back. We saw some of it. We've seen some of it. But really for him, it's going to be before the snap stuff. So he needs to be in a system where he's with the same offensive staff for 2 years in a row, and then we can get a real opinion on him.
I agree. I'm also handing him the immunity stick. I was really impressed by how he played this game, in particular how confident he was to throw against single coverage and close single coverage, sort of like what you mentioned. Those first 2 games that we watched at the beginning of the year, I can't remember who he played. What was it? It was the Saints and, man, who else was it against? I can't remember what the second game of the season was. But anyways, in those 2 games, he just, whenever he was throwing against single coverage, you could tell he was so terrified to turn the ball over. It was either too short of a pass or the wide receiver never had an opportunity to get it because the defensive back also was never going to have an opportunity to get it, or it was one of those situations where he throws it over their head and you can like kind of make yourself feel good and say, oh, well, either my receiver got it or nobody got it. Well, nobody got it, and nobody was getting it too often. He wasn't really giving his players a chance with how he was throwing and the confidence level that he was operating under through the first couple of games of the season. I think it has looked very different over the last couple of weeks, in particular this past week, when he was able to attack single coverage, attack those like small throwing windows, not a ton of separation. And another thing I love from Bryce Young, middle of the field stuff, man. Everybody, like, he's short, okay? I'm not breaking any news by saying that. And a lot of people looked at Bryce Young and like, man, he'll never be able to attack over the middle of the field because he can't really see over the offensive line. It's going to be an issue for him. He's going to have to move outside of the tackles if he wants to go back and try to attack between the hash marks and between the numbers. And there were plenty of opportunities in this game where he attacked in between the numbers and he attacked true middle of the field in between the hashes. And I think that was a really important part of his game that you wanted to see, because that also is a big hint at confidence. Like, that is also showing, okay, this is progression. He's not afraid to put the ball over the middle, which some quarterbacks just aren't comfortable doing so, but Bryce Young is, and he was when he was at Alabama. So it's good to see a little bit of that that we saw against the Kansas City Chiefs. I will say, there are still some layup throws that he missed, either, some throws to the flat, some quick out routes, some speed outs, things like that, where he could have made his life easier. You mentioned, okay, he snaps the football, he's looking, he's extending the play a little bit, he's retreating, he's making the throw a little bit longer, but he normally is making the throw the way that he needs to. That was sort of an Alabama tendency that I hope that he would get a little bit better at the NFL. You don't always have to retreat and make the throw longer. You could sometimes you could more often hit hot. You hit your receivers hot. And he has not done that as much as I've wanted him to do at the NFL level. I still think that's another step in his progression. And I even thought that against Kansas City, there were a handful of throws where it's like, okay, you attempted a more difficult throw, and sometimes they were complete. And I go like, all right, well, I want to give you credit for that, certainly, but you could have made this a little bit easier on yourself by getting rid of the football to the player who is open within the first second and a half of the play. And I think that's sort of what's next for him. You mentioned that he's got to be able to win pre-snap. He's got to be somebody who's got to be able to see the defense, the way that it's lined up, how they're going to rotate, and understand what's going to happen once he snaps the ball. That, to me, is coming. And the more difficult part of his job playing quarterback, I thought that he showed much more improvement against the Kansas City Chiefs. So it was at home. Obviously it's a team that's the defending champs. So if you can't get motivated to play the Kansas City Chiefs, you're just never going to get motivated. So a lot of the things sort of went in their favor for this team to be able to play well, but they did. And Bryce did. And I think that's really important. I would love to see him continue to build off of that going into next week. But with, what does Carolina have? 5-6 games left of the season. I think 6 games left of the season. To me, we're in a situation where even with them getting a top 5 pick, I'm with you. I'm sticking with Bryce moving forward. And going into next year, so that I can use that top pick in the first round to either pick in the top 5 and get a really good football player, or maybe even trade back, because Carolina now needs a lot of different pieces. And so if they end up getting the number 2, number 3, shoot, even number 1 overall pick, you might have an opportunity where you can trade back out of that spot and get not as high of a price as we've seen in years past, with the quarterback class not as touted as it has been previously, but still, you can get a pretty penny by moving back a little bit. You could probably get yourself an extra first-round pick, which I think would be good for Carolina. So I agree with you. I'm sticking with Bryce. Anything else before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, my caveat is that they haven't, these 3 games that they've won in a row, which is great. Happy for them. Haven't played against really good defense, or specifically a good pass defense. Saints are generally not good pass defense wise. The New York Giants are very bad, very, very, very bad pass defense wise. And the Kansas City Chiefs over the last 3 or 4 weeks have also been very, very bad in their pass defense. Basically, since Jalen Watson went down there, their cornerback opposite of Trent McDuffie, they've been really bad. That's a whole story for another episode. But like the Chiefs defense is bad. They play against a Bucs defense this week that, like the Chiefs, are gonna blitz you, and Bowles is gonna blitz him, and I'd love to see him have another game. Like it's not a good Tampa Bay pass defense at all. So like let's see if we can put together another game. Again, the caveat is like not great pass defenses that they're gonna see in this 4-game stretch, but if they can do it again and maybe get another win, like, hey, like let's at least put them together, string some games together,
right?
Whether or not it's a good defense or a bad defense.
Right. You said that they had won 3 in a row. They won 2 in a row. Didn't beat
2 in a row, right?
Yeah, didn't beat the Chiefs. But honestly, like I know there's no moral victories in the NFL. Like, It kind of felt like a moral victory. Like if there was ever going to be a moral victory, it actually felt that way for Carolina, who actually showed some life there. But you're right, Tampa's defense. I mean, there are times when it's looked like one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. There are times when it's looked good. It just kind of depends how they pair things with the blitz, and they're getting a little bit more healthy. So we'll see. Obviously, we're able to play well against Tommy DeVito and totally limit that Giants offense. It is a really interesting test to take against a divisional foe, I should say, in Tampa Bay this week. So thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below. So if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you become one today.